Hello, I'm Conowin Moore. Welcome to The Cave. Today I'm really excited because I'm going to bring you a little behind the scenes composer's commentary on my piece called Sacred Ruins that I wrote for Women's Ensemble back in 2020. And the reason I'm bringing this up now, 5 years later, is because I was blessed to not only witness but perform in the recent premiere of this piece by the Bremerton West Sound Symphony up in the Pacific Northwest. Today we're just going to talk about all the things that went into making it, so I hope you enjoy. I wrote this piece back in June of 2020, and the world had just gone into lockdown, as we all probably remember, and I was singing with a group known as Lyrica Ladies Ensemble of Puget Sound. We had been off of rehearsals for quite some time because, of course, people were not getting together singing during the pandemic. So I took it upon myself to occupy myself during this period with some deep composition. And I was actually going through a whole moment with the Goddess Brigid because I had really just stepped into my witchcraft. Back in 2019, I started calling myself a witch. I was working with a coven at the time, and Brigid was really a strong emphasis from the very beginning. I read Courtney Weber's book on Brigid and was really inspired, felt called to go through all of my possessions at the time, which I sort of collected over the years from my mom because she'd given me so many of my childhood memories. And I've talked about this actually at length on my blog. So if you're interested, please go check out those articles where I talk about the whole inception of this piece. But really, this was meant to be for Brigid, and it was a thank you to Brigid because I just finished going through all of those memories, and it was a really difficult process. For me, I have a fourth house moon, so for all those who don't know astrology, I'm real nostalgic. The anguish of losing time and looking back in memory and ache of missing childhood is really strong with me. So this has shown up many ways throughout my art, and I hope to talk about this more at length if you're interested. Writing about memory and writing about childhood, just the way that we remember and how it's different than the truth, or is it, right? Which is real truth? Something I'm very interested in, and so I've written extensively about this within my music. This piece was meant to be a thank you, and at the time, the world just was so lush and gorgeous and vibrant. I don't know if you remember that spring. Everybody was talking about the world is healing, and truly it felt like that. Everything was just so lush and green and gorgeous, and we live on 2 acres of protected land, and it's so beautiful here. At the time, I didn't have any kids, and I'd spend time just outdoors wandering around. I live near a creek that's protected, and so that magic of visiting ruins, ancient ruins, there's such mystery and beauty there. Kind of fantasize that, when I was out there, I was amongst the ruins, and this whole piece came to mind. First thing I did was actually write the poetry. So here is the poem. C.A. Worden is the name I use for all of my more contemporary classical works. Worden is my maiden name, and C.A. is for my first name that was given to me, which is Carly Ann. You can find all of my chamber works online. Actually, if you go to smashingivoryproductions.com, all of that stuff is there. So if you're interested in hearing my other work, that's there as well. And I'd love to know if you want me to talk about it. So I wrote this text. The wind dances softly, and the air whispers, echoes of ages past. Grant me a moment of golden embers grasping at leaves, towering trees that twist and writhe amongst the ruins. Sacred sanctuary, where stories of old bask in sobering truth and allow our countless questions to slumber. Barefoot on the forest floor, bathed in life. Come, rest in nature's grace. So I wrote this text, and really to me, the beauty of ruins is seeing the passage of time, and yet through that sort of examining the portal that is any set of ruins, because you can hear those echoes of generations that have lived there and died there. And to me, it brings this, sobering is the right word, sense of unity with all of humankind across ages, and how time is a landscape and not linear, right? we're all kind of existing at once, but then passage of time is laid out in front of us. So I've always just been so drawn to old architecture for that reason. Like, I love cathedrals, I love ruins, I love castles, and like, who doesn't? When I stand, I'm just in awe of the connection I feel with humans, like humanity. And so here is for Brigid and for the women of Lyrica Ladies Choral Ensemble of Puget Sound. I really wanted to write this piece for the ensemble I was singing in. I knew what our strengths were. I sang a second soprano, and I love singing second soprano because I love all the juicy like tones that you get that are sandwiched between the melody and like the lower tones, and how you have to like find these dissonances and you harmonize, and I love fitting my voice in like a puzzle piece there. So here's the original session file, and I'm gonna go ahead and play it. And it should sound really open. That's actually one voice. I just copied it. That's funny. So what I did was, you can see on the screen, I improvised this entire thing, just recorded in little tiny segments and just played around. Now, some of this stuff is not as developed. Like over here, it says need to develop here to sound like the beginning. It's funny. Oh, this is even different. Oh yeah, you can hear the improvisations. It's funny. Of course, if you haven't heard the piece before, you wouldn't know that some of that is never made it in. But yeah, there's some like little riffs going on in there. That's funny. Oh yeah, all the crunchy harmonies. I tried playing with that. And I played all this piano part, I think. I just improvised that and then threw vocals on top of it. I can't remember like which came first, but I think it was kind of a blend of both. So I knew that I wanted to start off this whole piece with a unison because I love the haunting quality of like a gorgeous all women's ensemble unison, and Lyrica knew how to do that really well. So I wanted to capitalize that like at the very beginning and start with this sort of stunning suspension in time and space, and then have it, of course, open up and develop into the main melody. Here's that is actually this piano bit. So that is pulled from a piece by Elisa, but I'll put the track and her album up here. And it's a direct lift, like completely frankly, but I've always loved it. And I love the way it moves. I wanted this to move like water. Of course, healing waters is a huge component of what the Goddess Brigid rules over. And I wanted this to feel like that river sort of, or the creek, you know, in my backyard. I pulled that rhythmic feature from Elisa because I've always loved it and just wanted to hear a full choir over it. So. And I love Smashing Ivory Productions is the name because I love big, loud chords on piano. And that's just an octave. I have the bells and bum, bum, as sort of this marking of time. Like, time has gone by and time is still going by. And yet we're suspended in time. Okay. So there's some David Arkenstone-esque like crunchy chords in here, and there's a great moment. There it is. Barefoot on the forest floor, which of course developed into something a lot more polished later. But that whole like crunch, barefoot, I wanted it to feel like you were walking in the leaves, right? And so doing that with the vocals was really fun. There's a part in here, I had to talk about this because it's my favorite part of the whole piece. I used to just sing this on repeat and I don't think anyone would guess it. Where is it? Okay, so it's the second rotation. Of ages past. I just, something about the way that flows into the next section, like, it makes me emotional. I wanted to give the altos a good moment, and I just thought, like, let's give them just a space to say something that, I don't know, it almost feels like the goddess, like talking. This piece honestly makes me emotional, and I'll just say it's largely due to Lyrica doesn't exist anymore. The pandemic unfortunately separated us for so long, and all of our lives had kind of moved into different directions. We came back together a couple times, but I was actually very pregnant when that happened, and I think there was even a rehearsal of this piece that was done in a parking lot to keep everyone safe. It's why I'm so grateful that this piece was premiered with Leanne and with many of the singers who were in Lyrica also singing in the symphony, as well as many more voices, which was just so incredible. I heard Lyrica singing this when I wrote it, and I still do. All right, so let's pop out of the improvisation for now. And I want to go back to the score as is. So what happened was I had this whole improvisation. I get to a point with these where I'm like, I think it's time to put them in an actual score. And doing score work is honestly some of my favorite stuff. I think this is like the Virgo and the Gemini in me that loves putting this whole thing together and then making it really beautiful. Now, I'm no publisher by any stretch. I'm not an engraver, but I did go to school for composition. I graduated from Cornish in Seattle. And this is, of course, was part of our work that we had to learn how to do is scoring so people could actually read what the heck we wanted them to perform. This took a while. I remember it was a lot of work, and it was in the midst of a lot of political turmoil that I was writing this, like scoring this out. I remember being like up late at night doing this while also like checking Twitter. I think it was around this time actually I deleted my Twitter because I was like, there's no way I'm gonna get this done. So I like was off of Twitter permanently, and then of course that became some other thing, which funny aside. Oh, and I loved all these slides in here. The thing, I wanted this piece to like move, like just it wasn't until we were in rehearsals that I realized like, oh shoot, this is actually much more complicated. I hear it in my head. It's always what happens. Oh, actually, I wanted to mention there's a moment in here. I was really into Outlander at the time when I wrote this, which you can probably guess. Like some of the themes bleed over. Towering trees. Yeah, this thing is straight out of that gorgeous opening track that they have at the very beginning of Outlander when all the druids are spinning around the sacred like stones. And so the ba 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 is like pulled from Outlander as well, just sort of as a little nod to the influence at the time for, frankly, the subject matter of this piece. Barefoot on the forest floor. Here, I love. And then bum bum do 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 do. I love playing with duples, triples, all of that. And then here's the solo, which I'm so grateful I got the opportunity to actually do with the group during this premiere. Not my intention, actually. I wrote the solo for my friend. I just heard her voice when I wrote it, and it was one of those like, I need her to do it, but she moved, and I miss her dearly. Devin, I love you. I ended up being able to sing this solo. Yeah, it's so fun. Which this whole section ended up being a lot more complicated to do in person than I thought in my head. And of course I sang all of it, but it's so different when you're in a recording situation where you're like doing segments. This was live. I do it live, right? And then the very end, I will say, without fail, always makes me cry. I cried at the premiere. Like Liam looked at me and I was like, don't you look at me right now. But she did, and it was so meaningful. It was so special. The rest in nature's grace really feels like a rest in peace, blessing, and wish for what was Lyrica. And also, like, as much as the forging work that I did with Brigid to like peel away the layers and shed the skin, or reintegrate myself with my childhood and then have to sort of walk away with the truth that I was going to carry with me and leave behind so much else. Like that was a rest in peace to those memories as well. When you don't have the tangible objects to connect with, it's harder to recall. You know, as much as I was going through a door into the next chapter of my life, saying goodbye to the chapter previously, this is the rest in peace wish for that. So it always makes me emotional. I also resolved in this piece. I never resolve. I hate resolving at the end of pieces. I love leaving things open and just like, wait, what? Is it over? And this piece, I was like, I gotta put the button on it. And I did. So then after I wrote the score, sent it to Leanne, everything got approved. Like, yes, we're going to start rehearsing this, which we did virtually. I wanted to provide a resource for the singers of Lyrica to learn this. And this actually ended up being really helpful for the recent premiere because I was able to send everybody their part individually to practice from. So here we have all our parts and the little solo here, just a little boop. And so if we listen to this, this is a lot more polished. It's fun hearing this, knowing what the improvisation sounds like. If you listen to this score, this is what the actual sound of it is when you're composing this. This is why I don't use this to like really compose. So then we go to here, and it's so much better. There's that part again. Oh yeah, Lyrica used to do like that whole, there were so many pieces that we had that, and I just thought we always did it so beautifully. So I added a bunch of those in there too. Also to represent the wind, of course, right? And then you can separate this out into the different part, like soprano 2, for instance. There's the altos. So this was very, very helpful and ended up being what I used to like premiere it on YouTube. Yeah, I used to have this whole little intro thing because it is indeed done all by this one crazy ambitious lady. So all of this footage was taken in my backyard at the creek. Knee deep in mud for this. It was so fun. And I just had my camera, which is what I'm recording on right now. I actually recolored this like so it looked kind of dead at the beginning. And then I bumped up that saturation when the piano starts up. Just to be like, see, it's alive. And what I realized is like in doing all of this nature footage, I was making a commentary about like how nature itself is a type of ruin and like connects us all together. Just noticing the decay of nature and how it itself like is a reminder of that life and death cycle. But how it comes back too, and how like, you know, much like a human stepping foot in a forest, and how like the structures of nature are ruins themselves, you know, but can connect us with this like deeper universal truth of humanity living amongst life and decay. Like I realized in filming this, it was almost an interesting commentary on the foliage and the forest that I lived in. Yeah, so this piece was rehearsed within a Zoom setting for quite some time, and then my life of course took many different turns, and then it wasn't until I think it was last summer of 2024 that Leanne propositioned me with the potential to premiere this piece, to which of course I said yes, I want to, and wanted to get involved with rehearsals, and ended up seeing the whole program. So you can actually watch the full premiere of the piece as well as a little talk I gave at the very end. Please go enjoy that. That's going to be on my main channel. But this of course is the behind the scenes look for all of you interested. I hope that you enjoy the premiere, enjoy this piece, and I am actively looking at getting this piece published right now. To this day, I'm still so grateful to Brigid for her inspiration, and like thanked her every time I walked into rehearsal these last 2 months. Thanked her at the concert. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little deep dive into some of the score and the session files from this piece and my background with writing it, my work with Brigid. Many of you, of course, know that I am in the midst of writing a giant orchestral piece with a choir for the Morrigan, who is my main goddess that I work with. And she, of course, is part of the same Irish pantheon. I'm going to be doing this, I think, with all my music. So if you're a listener of my music, please go check it out across all streaming. You can listen to Cono and More. And then this piece specifically is on one of my old YouTube channels, and you can watch it on SmashingIvoryProductions.com if you're interested. I would love for it to get performed again and have it published. That's the goal, right? Is to have this work out in the hands of those who appreciate it. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this little episode at the cave, and I'll see you next time for more magic, music, motherhood, and more.